And, it goes back to that initial moment inside the Oval Office where on the day after President Obama gave that speech when he talked about the 67 borders, which he retreated on very as quickly as he could. It was almost like, let me tell you what our reality is being surrounded by Syria, Hamas, Hezbollah, Iranian-funded missiles flying into our cities. Let me educate you what the real world is all about. And I sensed that the president was very angry at that moment.
Well, of course. I mean, if there was respect, it was a thin veil of respect. I mean, in effect, a foreign head of state came and rebuked our president before the Congress and got a standing ovation for doing so. A remarkable moment, and more evidence that the president gravely miscalculated, I think, in his speech last week. Americans support Israel on a bipartisan basis. Harry Reid.
That reaction was incredible.
That's Harry Reid's reaction to this is remarkable. And I rarely say kind words about Harry Reid, but he basically took the side of conservative Republicans and the Likud government against his own president.
Ray, I think back to Dana's point here for a second, and the graciousness with which he showed President Obama. He opened the door, let him out of the problem that he had created for himself, and just couldn't be more gracious. Do you agree with Dana? It's because he had already won the argument.
Absolutely. And, remember, there was a smackdown just a couple of days ago, and all of a sudden he emerges. And I think every Jewish American tonight, certainly after a couple of speeches and your fantastic interview, every Jewish American and certainly every Israeli should feel so proud of what the Prime Minister did. And the fact that he did show respect, I think, makes him the much, much bigger man, with due respect to our president.
All right, we got a lot more to get to tonight. But first, it's time to check in with Greta Van Susteren, who is on the Texas-Mexico border tonight. Greta.
And to show that I've been listening to your show, I'm more than 400 miles from Dallas, where they have a tornado alert right now. I'm paying lots of attention. We are way down south, right on the border. And we're here with Governor Rick Perry, who's going on the record. And if you think things are all settled and fine and secure and everything else down here at this border, boy, are you dead wrong. I've talked to a lot of law enforcement and the governor, and I've been there, and I've looked at the screens. So big show tonight and tomorrow night. Back to you, Sean.
All right, don't forget to ask him about the lizard that may stop the drilling in West Texas. It's an important issue. But Greta will
see. He mentioned something like that.
All right, more with Greta in 19 short minutes, and more with our great American panel right after the break. Straight ahead. And we continue now with our great American panel. All right, the White House hired this online rapid response spinner, because they want to deal with the new media. If there's any negative stories out there, they want to get it out.
Well, that I can accept. That I think makes sense, and I would advise any corporation, organization, government campaign, government office or campaign to deal with it. But in the original story, where they announced this guy's new hire in the Huffington Post, it said he will specifically be working to rebut criticism to help President Obama win re-election. That, if that is true, is a violation of the Hatch Act, which is something that they came after the Bush administration for over and over again. And if I were some enterprising young organization like Crew, I might want to look into.
No, they've attacked me, Crew. I had an FEC complaint filed against me.
They're an equal opportunity attacker.
I hire a big. You know what this is? Those groups are out there to intimidate and silence. There are groups out there. That's their whole job.
Of course, but the administration has given up even the pretense of governing. I mean, the president's already announced his re-election campaign. So at this point, the hope of any meaningful legislation getting through Congress, zero. The hope of any bipartisan cooperation, none. It's the campaign season already, and the guy is still the president of the United States with a very troubled country he's supposed to be the steward of, and he's abandoned that in order to get reelected.
But it's interesting. Ray, you follow the economy. I mean, that's what you do, and your talk show's on the economy and money, and if these numbers stay the same, it's almost mathematically, everyone's talking about how weak this Republican field is. I don't buy the narrative, number one. Whoever emerges at the end of this process is going to be stronger. And number three, this president now has to run on his record.
Yeah, this is what's really interesting, because he's going to need a spinmeister. Cash for clunkers. Used cars up 30% since cash for clunkers. New homes, you get $8,000 credits. In my city and most cities around the country, real estate down 8.8% year over year, despite the fact that he got an $8,000 tax credit. You go through one program after the next program. The stimulus plan in the news today. You've got 3,700 corporations basically getting stimulus money, $24 billion. and they owed $750 million in back taxes. There's just something sinister going on. I don't know what it is, but this is a bad thing. It's a really bad thing.
Here's how I see the Democratic campaign emerging. Smear, slander, besmirch, attack, obfuscate, don't talk about my record.
And that would be different how? From any of the previous campaigns?
Well, I think in 2008, the president was very good at advancing, platitudes.
Ooh, I don't know. I think you should ask Hillary Clinton about that.
Well, no, Hillary Clinton's people love me because I was the only one doing any investigative work into President Obama and his background in radical associations. But in seriousness, he can't run on the record.
No, his toughest opponent will be his record, right? In 2008, he didn't have anything to run on. He had voted present more times than any president. Now he needs a debt ceiling increase. What does he have to do? Admit that he played politics with it when he was a senator, as others have done. But now he's in a position of governing. So in some ways, his toughest opponent is his record.
But the idea that he was going to bring the country together or that any president can transcend partisan differences was silly. It was silly, and anybody who believed that was mistaken. But the promise that he made that sounded kind of believable, and a lot of people voted for him on the basis of, was that he wouldn't feed the country candy. He'd be willing to make the tough decisions. He'd be willing to say, you know what, you may not like it, we're doing it anyway. And he's proved totally unequal to that. He gives a speech on entitlement reform, and the essence of it is, I'm going to keep spending whether you like it or not. He has been unwilling to address the basic problem, which is the debt, and he won't even look it in the face.
Listen, whether there's a gang of 6 or a gang of 26, the problem is the 800-pound gorilla. It's Medicare and, of course, Social Security. Medicare bigger than Social Security, and if you don't cut Medicare spending, you don't solve the problem. I think the Republicans
But the Democrats are trying to exploit this because it's worked for them in the past, scaring old people to death, literally. Will the Republicans pay a price for going out first on that, as some have suggested? I don't think so. I think the Ryan plan, the country's ready for it.
Now, listen, I think the Republicans have a really tough job of communicating. They've got to communicate that this is not going to affect anyone over the age of 55. So really, you've got 10 years before you have to start worrying about this problem. So it's not going to affect the people that are really up in arms about it.
But wait a second. In order to sell it, Republicans have to believe it and have the courage of that conviction. And a lot of Republicans, it must be said, demagogued on this question during the health care debate. They attacked Obama for cutting Medicare.
$500 million.
No, but you see what I mean?
Yeah.
They did what Democrats do. And to this day, I can tell you in Washington, a lot of Republicans, I think the majority, are terrified to bring up any kind of Medicare reform because they think it's a loser.
But you don't. But Ray's right. You don't balance the budget till you deal with.
Well, no kidding.
But Congressman Paul Ryan,
President Bush tried to deal with Social Security.
He tried to deal with Social Security. Congressman Paul Ryan, however, has weathered these storms. He argues on the merits, and he's something that someone who the Republicans can get behind and follow.
All right, guys. Good to see you all. Thank you for being with us, and we are continuing to follow the tornado warning that now exists in Dallas, Texas tonight after a tornado touchdown in Oklahoma City. We'll have the very details of the latest on that coming up. Also, a controversial new book by a former Palin insider slams the Alaska governor, Sarah Palin, but just how explosive are the author's claims? He's here next in studio. Straight ahead, coming up. My next guest worked on Sarah Palin's 2006 gubernatorial campaign and then in her administration. And Frank Bailey is out with a controversial tell-all book that does not paint a flattering portrait of Alaska's former chief executive. He told the Associated Press in 2009, I had the sense of she made it to the White House and I had stayed silent. I could never forgive myself. But what exactly caused him to arrive at that conclusion? Well, the author of Blind Allegiance to Sarah Palin, a memoir of our tumultuous years. Frank Bailey's here. Frank, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean.
You know, as I'm reading through your book, and I'm reading it, and, you know, I don't know what to think about it because you say it's blind allegiance, but you did all these things.
I did.
And so, and then you say, I shouldn't have done it. And I'm trying to say, well, the things that you say you did, because you got in a lot of trouble.
I did more things than were even found out about at the time. You know, Sarah, I was her go-to guy, you know, for a good 4 years. And, you know, Sean, I mean, I own things that I did that I'm absolutely not proud of. But some of the causes, some of the time that I spent doing things for her, it was against the values that I was raised to live by. And, you know, you talk about, you know, this point where, you know, what brought you out of that. And really, I mean, in 2009, there was this moment where we had an event, a parental consent initiative fundraiser, a huge event up there in Alaska. 3 days before, the Palins call me up and they ditched the event. She then lied about it in the media and then turned around and threatened legal action against the organizer of this event.
Here's the thing, as I read in the book, you tell personal things about their children. You release personal emails that they sent you. You talk about petty little battles between Sarah Palin and her husband, whether they're true or not.
Sean, I don't attack their children.
Anyway, you
I've
do
got
so.
nothing
You
against-
do so. You basically, because when Sarah Palin is on the phone with her daughter, you tell the story. Oh, you want to listen to this?
Right.
And I'm thinking, why?
That's
wait
not
a minute.
attacking a child.
Sure it is, because you're dragging her children in that sense. You are. I mean, here you work for them. Here they pay you. You're brought up on ethics charges. Don't you, right now, you face, you have a current investigation that you violated Alaska law going on right now.
I've done everything.
And you
I
called a
can.
trooper and what?
I absolutely did. It's a 24-minute phone call that went all the way across this country, And, I mean, I've done everything I possibly can to work with the Attorney General's office, but ultimately, Sean, this story has to be told. Conservatives have to vet their leaders. I'm concerned when I hear her say things like you just mentioned, that she has a fire in the belly to run. I mean, we've got to have strong leaders that are honest and
Wait a minute,
principled,
here's my
and
point.
She's not that person.
You have an attorney general recently releasing a statement reaffirming their investigation on you. You've got a 24-minute tape. These are things that you did. And as I read the book, I don't care about, why would you, you know what one of the most important qualities to me is, faithfulness. If you didn't want to work for her, and these things are going on as bad as you said, you should have left then and there. But you didn't. You stayed there,
are right.
and now all of a sudden, you're selling a book on her name.
Sean, you
That's
are
cheap.
absolutely right. You are absolutely right. But the things that I vested so much into that campaign and into her run as governor, I mean, I kept doing things for her that I absolutely regret.
You were let me give you that. You were the email account network administrator for the Palins, correct?
I was one.
Okay,
yes.
and so that's a position of
Sean,
trust and wait a minute.
every
That's a
single
trust and
email-
responsibility.
Absolutely.
Okay, hang on a second.
But every single email that is used in this book was sent to or from me.
But did you
Let me make
represent
that
to the U.S.
perfectly clear.
Attorney in Tennessee that you made one copy of all the Palins emails on Yahoo and on these different accounts and did not keep any copies?
Absolutely. No, I didn't say that I didn't.
You didn't
keep
say
any
that?
copies.
You did keep a copy.
It was
kept
known
all the
at
emails.
time. Absolutely, and they're theirs. They are the Palins' emails.
I know, but you say
I would never go and
all of
use
it-
some of their private communication in their own accounts.
Well, you did. You
against
released
them.
all the books
No,
full of
I did
emails,
not,
private
Sean.
communication.
Sean, you're missing the point.
No, your emails to her. If she sends you an
Yes.
email and you work for her, why would you release this to the public? Why would you talk about their children? Why would you talk about their grades were failing? Why would you talk about
Sean,
the
let me ask
conversation
you a
with the
question.
daughter?
Why aren't you and the folks on this network
Because I
talking
don't care
her
about your
honesty?
gossip.
I
don't care about what she says publicly.
Why are you actually trying to vet these leaders? We have to
I
have
don't
a
want to vet
strong
them,
leader
but
on
she's
the right.
All right.
You don't want to vet them, Sean?
All right, I will invite you back. We'll talk more. Greta's next. We're just out of time tonight because of breaking news.